Well, it surely seems to me that while we can't know for certain whether their fathers, it's a possibility, I guess, that some of their fathers had been among those who had been slain. Remember when 1,000 kneel down on the ground and are just slain because of their faith? That's a possibility that they've been without a father. And of course, I think it just tells us that really the mother is the nurturer in their society, and what we would like it to be in our society. At least the church would teach that. We look at the proclamation of the family. Yeah, and that their mothers had been teaching him while at their knee about faith and prayer, and it's the role of the mother, and that's what it's been. That's how it's been done, and it's obviously bore fruit for them, and yeah, we applaud that. We think this is so important to know that this was the key to their faith, and I think she gets to spend all that time with the children while the father's off, whether he's off working the farm or the business, whatever that would have been their societal processes. But at least that's part of it.
President Hinckley certainly spoke out frequently on the role of mothers, in his various discourses to the church. I can recall one, I have it here. I remind mothers everywhere of the sanctity of your calling. No other can adequately take your place. No responsibility is greater, no obligation more binding than that you rear in love and peace and integrity those whom you brought into the world. And the world's changed that norm for most people.
Well, now, as we come to chapter 59, and we've got, the scenario here. Moroni has been frustrated, no supplies, no reinforcements, wondering what's going on, and there's a little lesson here before we talk about the exchange of letters in chapter 59, verse 9, where he just, in commenting about their plight and the struggle, because they don't have the resources and they're losing cities, he says it was easier to keep a city from falling into the hands of the Lamanites than to retake it from them. And one day that hit me, that's just exactly how it is in life. It's much easier to keep a family or a person from falling than to have to retake them. And I think of the words of President Benson when he made this statement, and I think many have heard this. He said, it's better to prepare and prevent than to repair and repent. And it really is. In cities and in lives, it's so much better if we would just take action to prepare and prevent this from happening than to then have to go out and try to pick up the pieces and reclaim, though we will do that. But it's much more costly in physical warfare, and it also can be much more costly and difficult and sometimes not successful in trying to reclaim them. So another little lesson we can apply from these war stories as well. Well, what about this letter from Moroni to Pahoran and then to Pahoran back? We learned several lessons here. Any thoughts, comments you want to share on this story?
Definitely some strong feelings being shared.
Absolutely. This is not a love note, is it? No. That he's sending to Pahoran.
While he's the designated military commander, and while he even speaks of receiving revelation from the Lord in his functioning there, I don't think we can completely dismiss the fact that he made a mistake. Now it's with very honorable intentions. This isn't the fatal flaw in Captain Moroni, but nonetheless, I recall Elder Maxwell. He said Moroni was not the first underinformed leader to conclude that another leader was not doing enough, nor was Pahoran's sweet, generous response to his beloved brother Moroni the last such that will be needed. And just seeing this in perspective.
The old misunderstanding between the office and the field out there, and Moroni concluding that, hey, look, if you're not going to supply us, if you're not going to stand with us, you're a traitor. That's a pretty strong word.
Well, and what Moroni has learned, indeed, there's truth to what he's been given by the Spirit, as he's back over here in verse 33 of chapter 60, where he just simply writes that the Lord saith unto me, if those whom you have appointed your governors do not repent of their sins. Well, it's governors, plural. There are plenty of these leaders who are indeed doing exactly what he's writing. It's just Pahoran doesn't have to be one of them. And he's writing, of course, Pahoran's the leader, and would thus be assumed if Pahoran hasn't handled this, he's been partly responsible. So what Moroni has been receiving is clearly that there is a problem, and there is a problem. and that it needs to be cleaned up, and that there are, as he says back here in verse 13, some righteous who've been slain because of this neglect and these problems, and the Lord allows that sometimes so his judgments will be just upon the wicked. It just isn't going to be upon Pahoran, it's upon these others that it's going to happen to. And so I think we see this dilemma, but as you said, Keith, the response now of Pahoran is just absolutely profound. It's powerful. What a lesson for us.
Well, in fact, if you recall, in a recent general conference, it was, let's see if I have my notes there, but it was Elder Bednar who gave his talk, and the title of the talk, and nothing shall offend them. And this is how he kind of summarized one of the greatest indicators of our own spiritual maturity is revealed in how we respond to the weaknesses, the inexperience, and the potentially offensive action of others. A thing, an event, or an expression may be offensive, but you and I can choose not to be offended, and to say, with Pahoran, it mattereth not. And I just really loved the way he saw, like you said, Pahoran's, the depth of his response there.
Compliment to him, isn't it?
I mean, he knew Moroni's intention, and they're certainly on the same side as far as wanting to solve this problem, but he also realizes Moroni doesn't know how bad of a problem he's gotten into and needs his help. And
he's actually so grateful that there is a Moroni who could come to his rescue. That's the point. He says, I know you're really on the same side that I am, and thank goodness that this is the case. Otherwise, maybe all would be lost.
These are great words from Pahoran in 61:14.
Yes.
Therefore, my beloved brother Moroni, let us resist evil. And whatsoever evil we cannot resist with our words, that's first, diplomacy, with our words, yea, such as rebellions and dissensions, let us resist them with our swords. So,
against that verse with this, in the cause of our Redeemer and God, and you see that word appear over and over again in these chapters of the cause. What cause are they fighting for? And you see the Lamanite cause versus the Nephite cause, whether it's revenge and bloodthirstiness, or the cause of God, the freedom, protecting families, and so forth. And over again, that word cause jumps out.
Important teaching here is that you cannot compromise with evil. If you do, evil always wins.
So they come storming back and reclaim the capital and put things in order, and yet there'll be many loss of life. And we jump now, for time's sake, down to the end of our chapters here, and of course in chapter 63 we have Helaman who will die, and it's in fact 62 verse 52. And Moroni will die, and I mentioned there in verse 3, he's only 43 years of age, very young man. He's literally worn out his life and given it in behalf of his people in this cause. And we've got some who are sailing off with Hagoth, for what reasons? Perhaps to escape all these conflicts, and maybe some who are leaving are the people of Ammon who don't want to have to continue to worry about breaking their oath, but they go forward. And that kind of brings us now at this point. Maybe, Jared, you could just summarize if there's a lesson in all of this that we've been talking about here that we could bring this together with.
Sure. I mean, obviously this was a terrible time of war, a lot of conflict, a lot of suffering. And the effect it had on the people, in chapter 62, verse 41, it talks about how for the righteous, they became softened because of the afflictions. For the wicked, they became even hardened. And so, you see both going through the same experience and yet having completely different results depending on whether they would turn to the Lord, seek His help, or not.
So somebody said boiling water hardens eggs, but it softens carrots. You can have a different perspective on how the hard times that we're living in. Same.
Thank you, brother. It's been great to discuss these with you today.